The door of the cafe swung open with a sharp chime as Sarah Williams rushed in, shaking off the morning drizzle. The air smelled of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries. She was late again, but she didn't care. She needed her caffeine before facing another long day. Her life in London wasn't easy. At 27, she worked 2 jobs just to pay rent in her tiny flat, and sometimes she wondered if the city would ever stop swallowing her whole. She joined the queue, scrolling through her phone, barely noticing the people around her, until she heard a soft, trembling voice at the counter. "I'm sorry," said an old man, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think I'm a few coins short." Sarah looked up. The man was thin, with grey hair and a frayed coat that looked older than her. His glasses hung crookedly on his face, and his hands shook as he searched through his wallet. The barista's expression hardened. "It's £3.20, she said coldly. "If you don't have it, you'll have to step aside." The man's shoulders slumped. A few customers behind Sarah sighed impatiently. Without thinking twice, Sarah stepped forward. "It's fine," she said, tapping her card on the reader. "I'll cover it." The old man turned to her, surprised. "You don't have to, miss." "I know," she said with a small smile, "but I want to." The machine beeped, the payment went through, and the barista handed him his coffee. The man looked at her for a long moment, his pale blue eyes glistening with something she couldn't quite read. "Thank you," he said softly. "You've no idea what this means." Sarah smiled. "It's just coffee." He chuckled quietly. "It's never just coffee." She gave him a polite nod and left, rushing to catch her bus. She didn't see the way he watched her go, or how he whispered to himself, "The world still has good hearts." A week later, Sarah was back at the same cafe, working her afternoon shift. Her manager, Dorcas, was barking orders as usual. The cafe was packed with customers, and Sarah was running on nothing but caffeine and willpower. Just as she was clearing a table near the window, a sleek black Bentley pulled up outside. The sight alone was enough to draw every pair of eyes in the shop. Moments later, a tall man stepped out, elegant suit, polished shoes, silver hair neatly combed. He looked like someone straight out of a magazine. The doorbell chimed as he walked in, his presence commanding but calm. He scanned the room, then his gaze fell on Sarah. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice deep and steady. "Is Sarah Williams here?" Sarah froze, unsure whether to answer. "That's me," she said cautiously. He smiled slightly. "May I have a word with you outside?" Dorcas frowned but nodded. "Make it quick, Sarah." Sarah followed him out, confusion swirling in her chest. He looked familiar, but she couldn't place from where. The man extended his hand. "Stephen Armstrong," he said. "You bought me coffee last week." Sarah's mouth fell open. "You?" She blinked at his fine suit. "But you looked different," he said, finishing her thought with a knowing smile. "Yes. I wasn't completely honest that day." Sarah folded her arms, still stunned. "You were pretending." "Not exactly. I was testing something." He paused, his eyes softening. "You see, I own this cafe. And about 70 others across the country." Sarah stared at him, speechless. "You're joking." "I'm not." His tone was gentle. "Every month, I visit one of my cafes in disguise, to see how people treat others when no one's watching. It tells me who deserves to move up in my company, and who doesn't." Her mouth went dry. "So, that day, you didn't know who I was," he said, "and yet you helped me without hesitation. That kind of kindness is rare." Sarah shook her head slowly. I didn't do it for anything. I just didn't want you to feel embarrassed. That's precisely why it matters. He reached into his coat and handed her an envelope. Inside was a gold-embossed letter and a small key. What's this? She asked, puzzled. A new beginning, Stephen said simply. I'm opening a new café, a community hub for people struggling to find their place. I need someone to manage it. Someone kind, patient, and trustworthy. I think that person is you. Sarah blinked, stunned. Me? But I'm just a barista. He smiled. You're much more than that. You have empathy. And that's something money can't buy. Her hands trembled as she looked down at the letter again. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take the chance, he said softly. Because you deserve it. For a long moment, she was silent. Then, slowly, she smiled. I'll do it. Stephen's grin widened. Good. I'll have my assistant contact you tomorrow. Congratulations, Sarah. As his Bentley drove away, Sarah stood on the pavement, still clutching the envelope, tears blurring her vision. That morning at the café came rushing back, the old man, his trembling hands, his quiet gratitude. She had thought she was helping him. She never imagined he'd change her life. 2 months later, the Heart Café opened its doors in a quiet corner of the city. It wasn't just another coffee shop, it was a sanctuary. The walls were painted soft cream, sunlight poured through large windows, and a handwritten sign above the counter read, "Kindness served here." Sarah stood proudly behind the counter, no longer the nervous barista struggling to make ends meet, but the manager of something meaningful. She had built a small team, students, single parents, even a retired teacher named Felix who just wanted to feel useful again. Every day, people came in not just for coffee, but for comfort. Sarah made sure no one ever left feeling unseen. Stephen visited often, though never as the wealthy businessman the world knew. He'd sit in his favorite corner, dressed simply, reading the newspaper, with a quiet smile. He refused any publicity, insisting the cafe's success belonged to Sarah. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the city, Stephen arrived just as Sarah was closing up. He placed a folded newspaper on the counter. On the front page was a photo of her cafe under the headline, "Heart Cafe inspires wave of kindness across London." Sarah laughed, shaking her head. "You said you didn't want attention." "I didn't," he replied. "But you deserve it." She smiled. "You know, I never asked why you were in disguise that day. Why go through all that trouble?" Stephen leaned against the counter, thoughtful. "Because money changes people. When I walk into a cafe as myself, everyone's polite, even fake. But when I walk in as a poor man, I see who truly cares." He paused, his blue eyes warm. "Turns out, that person was you." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "I didn't do it expecting anything in return." "I know," he said, smiling softly. "That's why it mattered." He raised his coffee cup toward her. To kindness, the rarest currency in the world. She lifted her cup too, clinking it gently against his. To be kind. Months passed, and the Heart Café became a quiet legend in London. Newspapers wrote about it, influencers praised it, and even celebrities stopped by. But for Sarah, the real success wasn't fame, it was the people she helped. One afternoon, a young boy named Armstrong, who sold flowers outside the train station, came shivering from the cold. He had no money, only a handful of wilted roses. Sarah gave him a hot chocolate in the house. He looked at her the same way the old man once had, surprised, grateful, almost teary-eyed. She smiled to herself. "It's just hot chocolate," she said softly. But deep down, she knew it was never just hot chocolate, just like it had never been just coffee. That evening, as she locked up, she looked around the cafe one last time before heading home. The lights cast a golden glow over the tables. It was peaceful, warm, and alive. She thought of the girl she had been, a tired, struggling barista who almost didn't stop that morning. And she thought of Stephen, the old man in disguise who had seen something in her no one else did. Her life had changed in ways she could never have imagined, not because she chased success or luck, but because she chose kindness when no one was watching. And as the rain began to fall outside, Sarah smiled, whispering into the quiet cafe, "Sometimes, all it takes to change your story is the price of a cup of coffee." If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to The Last Story for more inspiring stories. Share this video to remind someone that kindness still exists, and it's never wasted.